Okay, so we're recording, and today is April 7th, and we're in I'm going to go ahead and bring up the astrology chart, share my screen so that everybody can see it. And so here we go. This is the universal chart right now at this moment and on the Eastern daytime. And you can see that here's the full moon in Libra. And of course, it's opposite the sun, as it always is on a full moon. And the sun in Aries is, this is, you can see the sun as it's going down over the horizon. So the sun is going to go down pretty soon. And this is the horizon of the chart. So we can see that the sun's going to go down. So emotions are really heightened right now. And Libra is ruled by Venus, so typically it's, it brings in a really nice energy for finding peace and balance in our outward world. But on a full moon, when it's opposite the sun, the sun is our spirit, our light. It's where we're putting a lot of energy, and so many people are, putting a lot of energy, like you saw in the article I put out last night. We're all looking at ways that we can be proactive and self-protective, but it's really important that we're really aware of the other, and that we keep the peace, and that we appreciate each other so much, for especially at this time when we're all so separate. We're all being pulled in to keep ourselves safe. So this full moon is going to be exact tonight at, let me see, I made a note of it. Hang on, 8:56 p.m. Eastern Daytime. So we're really right now reaching a peak. This energy is really peaking, and what full moons do is they bring things to completion, to awareness. Everybody has a heightened sensitivity. And, Libra is a lot about collaboration, compromise, and justice. But, you find justice once you can find the compromise. And so as you can see, this moon is all these red lines are stress. This is what we call a cardinal T-square, and it's squaring Pluto and Jupiter. And these two planets are what we call transpersonal planets. So they're far away from us on Earth. Jupiter is biggest planet in our solar system, and usually it brings positive inspiration, expansion, heightened beliefs and faith. But in Capricorn, it's kind of like, it's an opposite energy. And so this is, bringing an expansion of change of structure. And Pluto is lord of the underworld, and it's a planet of great power, and it takes, it's what it's doing, it's bringing us big changes. It's like we're all walking through this dark tunnel, trying to figure out, how do we get through this tunnel right now, and Jupiter is magnetizing that. So this is a very stressful moon. And the sun, Aries, is actually ruled by, and I just want to add that these squares right here, this part of the chart is all about the family, the home. And as you can see with the squares, we're really kept, the challenge is for us to find out ways to to manage our home life right now, and where we're all pretty much captivated. And Aries, the sign Aries is ruled, every zodiac sign is ruled by either a planet or two planets, and Aries is ruled by Mars. And so we're going to look at, at the same time as this full moon is peaking, we have the planet that rules this sign of Aries in square to Uranus. So that means that we've got, you know, Mars is about action, activity, it's movement, it's what, you know, gives us the energy to like get up and move. And being in the sign of Aquarius, it's about friendships, it's about groups, it's about community. It's about achieving goals that we've set for ourselves. And with this square to Uranus, it's bringing in this sense of unexpected, you know, kind of crazy, unknown experiences. And it can also be a great deal of frustration that's showing up. So there's a lot of things that are peaking right now. And, you know, Aquarius actually rules over, you know, electricity also. And the currents of communication that we're actively, you know, having to find ways to, how do we get past these obstacles of all these, you know, Uranus's changes on Earth. Taurus is the sign of, it's an Earth sign, it's a fixed sign. So it's one of the you know, this is a big influence right now as to what the Earth is changing, while the Earth, all the changes on Earth. And so as you can see with this full moon, we have this huge imbalance. It's, you know, we're trying to figure out how do we find balance in the midst of the people we're relating to, our own personal balance. You know, it's not coming from the outside world, that's for sure. But it is something that we're going to have to find within ourselves in order to find some sense of peace, you know, in any way here. So one thing that I made some notes on this, that, you know, in order to have harmony, we have to have balance. Right now, we have a huge imbalance. Our bodies are telling us this. And for harmony to return in a sustainable way, this full moon shows us the huge level, you know, it shows us where these things are that are out of balance. And this is going to be very powerful all of this week until, you know, we get past, you know, this Mars-Uranus separates. I mean, that can also cause, you know, rebellion amongst groups of people. And just, you know, because Mars can be war or, you know, actions that are not, when it's in square to Uranus, it's like unexpected things coming up that nobody expects. So this is actually, as you can see, this is 5 degrees and this is 5 degrees. So that's peaking on this full moon. So it's going to separate. As it separates, this energy will dissipate, will, you know, break down. So that's actually a good thing. That's going to give us some sense of relief. And it's actually with the energy of Mars moving through Aquarius, we are getting some previews of what's playing out through 2020. And so this is a week that is not a week to make changes physically or financially, because what squares do, there's like a warning, slow down, take your time, so that there's not these, you know, upsets. That's Uranus, upsets. And so it's not a week to make physical changes physically or financially or impulsively. As Taurus rules over money. And as you can see down here, Pluto and Jupiter in Capricorn, that's an intense combination. And it indicates that, you know, this is a week that we just really need to take it slow, take it easy. There's going to be 3 times this year that Pluto and Jupiter come together, and that's right now. As you can see, it's beginning to separate, but when they're both going to go retrograde, so they're going to come back in June during the retrograde to be together, and that's the time where we look for answers, you know, when we have retrogrades. And so they're going to come back together in June and then in November. So this energy, like I said earlier, is going to stay with us in different ways throughout this year. And we're looking at, you know, some pretty big factors within ourselves. And, you know, one of the things that this combination here, well, Mars and Aquarius, it it connects us all physically. So if you're feeling, you know, these waves of unpredictability or instability, that's this aspect. You know, Mars in Aquarius, it's actions, people's actions, what they're doing. We're all feeling the actions of that. But you know, one of the things about Aquarius is it's an air sign, so it's communication, and and you can see Mars is in trine to Venus here, so that's actually an applying aspect on this full moon, and it's going to bring our need to be more connected. You know, that's those air signs are intellectual signs. It means, you know, that we do have abilities to communicate in very different ways right now. And, you know, we have to be thankful for that, because historically, this isn't what happened during times of, you know, influenzas or things like we're being experienced right now. One thing you want to be careful of with Mars, and again, this is universal energy, it's not individual, so it's not like it's for all of us. This is what's affecting us as a whole. So if you're interested in personal information, you know, it's going to be different for you, but a little different for you. But again, this is what affects us all. And you want to be careful though with Mars squaring Uranus, because that can cause accidents. You know, as a whole, we want to be very careful if we do get out, if we're, you know, having to go to the store, that you be very careful in any type of movement that you're engaged in. Late in the week, this week, Venus is going to enters into her shadow, meaning the foreshadow of its retrograde, and that retrograde is going to begin in May. So Venus is love. It's the power of attraction, and in Gemini, it's all about gathering information. It's about communicating. It's about networking. It's about, you know, relationships. So this energy, like I said, is growing this week, which is a relief. Any type of communication. So really, you know, it gives us the support to reach out to each other, to communicate with each other, to stay connected. So that's a really important thing for everybody, as you know, we're all at home, and but the foreshadow is going to be a shadow of what is going to be reviewed in our money systems, in our relationships during Venus's retrograde. And that lasts from, let me just get I can actually just show it to you on the screen here. So Venus's retrograde, it begins May 13th. You can see Venus right here. The numbers have turned red, the degrees. And so it's going to go back between May 13th. It's going to cover territory we've already covered, things we've already talked about, information that we've already gathered. We're going to be reviewing it. Relationships, we're going to be reviewing certain ideas and things that we're thinking about during the retrograde, and it goes direct on June 25th. So that's the retrograde. So right now, between now and the time May 13th, whatever it is that we are attracted to, or where we find peace, where we're communicating about, that's what we're going to be, you know, in relationships. A lot of times it's an indication. It's not a time to start a new relationship, but it is a great time to revisit relationships that we've had, and that we, you know, people that we love. That's a really important revisitation, so to speak. So so I'm going to come back to right here, right now, just because I want to take a look at Mercury moves into Aries. You can see right now, as we get to this full moon, that Mercury is in Pisces, and it's going to move into Aries. Let me move this so that it's one day at a time. So as you can watch it here as it moves into Aries. And Mercury is about communication. It's about the things we're thinking about. And right now it's, you know, we're all thinking in a very emotional way with it in Pisces. And, you know, we're feeling the sensitivity of, you know, our environments. That's where this Mercury is right here. So this is, let me show you when it moves into Aries. So Saturday is when Friday, Saturday, it's going to move into Aries, and it's going to be right next to Chiron. So we're going to be thinking a lot about how we can help ourselves to stay healthy, how we can, because Chiron is pain or a wound, and it's an area, so whenever you have pain somewhere, you know, for us, it's, you know, being able to communicate what our needs are. And being in, I mean, we've already, you know, this is a lot about self-realization, self-awareness, and, you know, trying new things, but we're not really able to do that so much. So it's not a comfortable energy, but let me just look at my notes here. It will, you know, it will bring some clarity for us around what we can do and what we can't do. And one thing I do want to bring up is that we do have a lot of planets in air. At this time, we have Saturn in Aquarius, we have Mars in Aquarius, these are air signs. We have Venus in Aquarius, and the full moon is in an air sign also. So there's a lot of air going on, a lot of effects, you know, to us intellectually and mentally. And so I want to talk about some history also of Pluto and Jupiter, as they, and historically times where we've had Pluto and Saturn and Capricorn, which is what they were, there was this huge cluster back in January. So historically in 1350, there was the Black Death that was associated with Pluto and Saturn. Then there was a Spanish flu in 1918. Polio epidemic was in 1947. And the AIDS epidemic was in 1982. So historically, when these planets come together, they bring about great change. I mean, not great change, just intense change on, and Capricorn is a planet that, you know, a sign that affects our careers, what we're doing in our work, how we're seen by the world, but it's also government. So we're having huge transformations, and we, you know, astrologers have been talking about this. And I talked to someone the other day, if anyone has, you know, we talked about that this time was going to be really intense for all of the world, but, you know, if somebody had said pandemic, people would have probably panicked. And I actually do know that Sylvia Browne, the famous psychic, wrote about this a long time ago in one of her books about 2020, and about about a pneumonia that would affect all of the world. And so I did want to bring that up is what Jupiter does in this, with this next to Pluto like this, is expanding the energy of restriction, fear, forcing people to face their fears. And so, you know, I heard this statement earlier. Fate is what happens, free will is how we respond. So, you know, we have the choice of how we respond to all of this. And so it's work to stay, you know, use all the things that we know in life to build something different than what's, you know, what's really tugging at us. And it is a great surrender, that's for sure. Pluto in Capricorn is surrendering the structures that were to make way for new structures. So one of the other things that I was recognizing about this week is that there's this, by the end of the week, there's going to be a loosening of the binds of restriction, and as the month progresses, as Mars moves away from Saturn. You can see that right here. And because Saturn is the, it controls whatever's next to it. It says, I'm going to restrict, I'm going to make you work hard for this. And as Mars moves away from it, it's actually going to, free us up from some restriction. One of the most unusual things about this virus, which we haven't seen historically, is that because we have such free movement, that's why this spreads so fast. People are so mobile. And, Jupiter next to Pluto makes this something that's really important. As we know, this is very, very important. And I think that one of the good things that we see happening here is as Mercury moves away from Neptune, it's going to bring us some sense of clarity. And that's what I was talking about by Friday, Saturday, as it moves into Aries. But we also need to be very careful with Mercury in Aries, because the responding verbally or jumping too fast to respond to things that are around us, we want to be careful of that, because Aries usually is impatient. So that's something that is going to be very easy to have happen. And we all know that we're moving into the future in a very rapid pace right now. And by April 10th, we're going to see Mars. Let me just move this to April 10th. We're going to see Mars actually sextiling Chiron. So there's this healing nature. There's this opportunity that we all have to find different ways to heal, to find the good part. What's good about ourselves, really reflect on ourselves. That's realize it. It gives us a realization of the situations that we're in. So I kind of want to talk too about tonight's full moon too, that it's doing an interesting dance with it's kind of like when you see the opposition, it's like a tug of war. This looks like a string or a rubber band that's really pulled tight. So, that brings us like a real awareness of where, of other people, of ourselves and other people. And it's like mirrors of, we're seeing mirrors of each other. And so it's really important that we find some way to compromise. And this full moon does really point out the unhealthiness of our outer world. And as you can see this aspect right here to Neptune, it's pretty strong on this full moon. And so that brings uncertainty of how to respond when we don't have clarity, levels of complexity coming out of the full moon. So it's like depths of emotion can be felt at this time. So, I also want to point out, as I said earlier, Mars in square to Uranus can make things explode, upsets our balance. Something has to give. That's what this chart is really indicating, that something has to give. And, I talked earlier about Venus and trine to Mars, and that's going to be very present till like the end of the week. And that is really, that's a helpful aspect. And as I said, making sextiles to Chiron, it gives us a strong awareness of others and, our own individual health, their health, our health. And so I think some of the keys to survival here are taking care of ourselves, and getting information, good information. So we don't really know some of the things we're hearing. We don't know what's true, what's not true. But I think Venus in sextile to Jupiter oh, wait a minute, that's not, oh, that's Mercury. I'm sorry. I was thinking about as Mercury moves into, when it moves into Aries, it's going to actually sextile Venus. So that's, let me just show you. That'll be like the end of this week going into next week. And then Mercury's also going to sextile Saturn. And so it's going to sextile Mars, Venus, and Saturn. And so that gives us a strengthening of the idea of how, how to communicate better, how to find information that's accurate. So that's going to be actually helpful as we get like to the end of the week. Positive signs we need right now. Any positive signs are going to be helpful. April, actually, the moon moves into Capricorn April 12th, but around the 13th, the 14th, and the 15th, the moon really influences on a day-to-day basis. And it's going to, the moon on the 13th, 14th, 15th is going to come across Pluto and Jupiter. So we might see a replay of some of the things that we've been seeing, another level of awareness. And so I'm going to just like between now and next Tuesday when I do another one of these, I'm going to walk through where the moon is on it daily. So by tomorrow, Wednesday, tomorrow night, late afternoon into the night, the moon is going to move into Scorpio. And so there is, the next couple days is going to be very, very, very sensitive sign as Scorpio is a water sign and it's ruled by Pluto. So, from an emotional standpoint, we're all figuring out how we can emotionally adjust to the things we can't control. Because this is what we call a fixed T-square right here, and it's actually at that time the moon's going to be opposite Uranus. So, we're going to have a lot of reflections of others again, and it would be very easy to react, from a place based upon all that we're experiencing. It's almost like we're all in a state of shock of what's happening in the world. And from an emotional standpoint, the 8th, the 9th, and the 10th, especially the beginning of the moon being in Scorpio. I wish I had better news to report to you, but we are moving through, this tunnel that we're, trying to figure out how to get to the other side. One of the good things that I do see right here is that, water is our most sensitive sign. So this is, we have the opportunity here to be compassionate to each other, to nurture each other in the best ways we can, and to inspire faith in each other and, hope. So that's going to be an important thing as around Wednesday the 8th. And so we do want to be, want to take our time with these fixed squares, because this is also about acceptance. We're having to accept things that we can't change, accept where we're at, accept the limitations that we have. And it's actually, I look at squares actually as, even though they're challenging in the outer world, they're actually, they provide us with some level of protection. And but the challenge is accepting it. That's what fix is about accepting what we can't change. And let's see here. See, Mercury, when it comes next to Chiron, which is, let's see, I wrote that. The sun, okay, I want to talk about the sun actually around the 19th. Well, let me finish going through the moon first. I'm kind of jumping ahead of myself here. So April 9th, the moon is going to be in Scorpio again. it's moving. It takes about 2.5 days for the moon to move through a sign. So what are the things? We've got a grand trine right here. You see the blue trine in water. So that's really, you know, feeling the vibrations of the world around us. And, you know, Moon in Scorpio helps us to emotionally identify things that we weren't able to see before. And that is, how can we come through this time of transformation and find some sense of security, and where is that coming from? So let's see here. What else is it's in conjunct the sun? That means that, you know, there are adjustments. There's this level of discomfort here. You know, it's putting stress on us in relationships. So we need to be aware of that. The adjustments are really important to make. Let's see. Let's move to the next. So this is Friday. The moon's already moved into Sagittarius. And you know what? The moon is the closest body to us here on Earth. So it inspires, wherever it is, it inspires that energy to, you know, influences that energy to us emotionally. So this is a fire sign, Sagittarius, and it's about searching for answers of how we can feel better, searching for the truth. Because Sagittarius is the searcher, the researcher. And one thing to be aware about here is that it's going to be in opposition to Venus. So there are going to be exchanges. Oppositions can either bring us together or they bring us up differences, and Venus is relationships. So, I mean, there might be news here that we receive that we know is truth, but it's, you know, we're understanding that there's not much we can do to control it. So this is a mutable sign. So we're having to accept it. And let's see here. Actually, the moon is actually trining Chiron, and it's about to trine Mercury. Trines are relief, meaning that there is some type of forward movement here. Emotionally, we're feeling like we're a little bit more inspired. We are, you know, Sagittarius is the believer also, the sign of faith and hope, and really staying connected to that, the spirit of forward movement. So let's see here. Let's keep going with the moon. So we got the moon again on Saturday, is still in Sagittarius, and it begins to square Neptune. So this is, you know, emotionally feeling, this is going to be a really important time for people to be mindful of that. You know, you're feeling really affected by the level of confusion around us. So really, you know, doing anything that keeps you mindful to stay present. Because again, we've got, as the sun begins to square Pluto and Jupiter, it's going to challenge us to really stay in the light, to stay positive. And this is definitely this week is going to be a week that, you know, we'll be happy when this week is over, for sure, because it's one of the most intense weeks that we're experiencing so far. But the sun in square to Pluto isn't really the best for our vitality, because the sun is our vitality. And so it's just really feeling the struggles that we're all experiencing right now, not being able to move around and having to surrender that. And what does that look like? And so we do have, let's move again. Let's move to Sunday. Here's Sunday. Sunday, the moon is going to actually move into Capricorn. And so that's what I was talking about. You can see this cardinal T-square that's showing up right here, which is you know, mentally, verbally, logically, we're really being tested to, you know, to not give in to fear and to rise above that. And one good thing that when the moon moves into Capricorn, it's going to, so let's go to the next day here, the 13th. As you can see, it's approaching Pluto and Jupiter here, but it's going to trine Uranus on Sunday. So that gives us some open, you know, like logical, maybe even realizations of how we can, you know, what's available to us as tools to emotionally move through this time of great change. And, you know, what on this earth is going to help us. There's a lot of focus here on work and business and just organizing things. That's what Capricorn is about. But Capricorn also, you know, will use whatever it can as a tool. You know, that's one of the things that, so we'll be emotionally inspired to do that, to use whatever it is we can that helps us emotionally move through this time. Let's see, let's go to Tuesday and then we'll stop with talking about the moon. There you can see what I was talking about around the 14th, 13th, 14th is the moon coming right in between Jupiter and Pluto. So that might be a revisitation of what we've been experiencing, and, you know, just really expanding that. So we can see that this is what we call, we've got a cardinal cross here. So you see the cross squared off. So it's about action, and it's about activity, and that we'd like to fix what's going on, but we don't really know how to do that. One of the things I talked about in my newsletter is that it's possible that we're going to, when Venus is retrograde, it's between, let's say, May and June, that there's a possibility of finding some answers, because Gemini is in medical astrology actually rules the lungs. And so when Venus goes back retrograde over Gemini, it's possible that we find some answers through, you know, investigation, through gathering information, through, you know, networking, that there are some answers that come. And let's see here. And I'm going to talk about this more in the future. Here's the new moon on April 22nd. And as you can see that it's very stressed. That means that we really don't know what to expect, because Uranus is the unexpected. It's the, you know, sudden unexpected things. And so this is April 22nd. This is a couple weeks away, but it's still, you know, usually new moon in Taurus would bring us some sense of groundedness and stability and a new tone that is present of that nature. But the sextile to the north node is actually giving us some level of opportunity to really focus on taking care of our, you know, what we need to as far as security goes. That's Cancer. As far as our relationships go, because it's in this part of the chart which is about relationships. So it's supportive is what I'm saying. It's supportive of a direction, being focused on the direction we need to go, because, you know, this could also be that we're breaking through some barriers on this new moon. So does anybody have any questions about any of this, you know, the next week? I'm gonna open up, you know, if anybody has any questions. Or is there anything that you want to share, or anything that you want to discuss that you've learned or realized in this time? What is it that you're doing that you know, because right now communication is so important. So sharing where you're at in your life, what you're doing, that's really important. Nobody has anything. Okay, so what I'm going to do then, I'm going to start a meditation. And one of the things I wanted to share too is that every planet in astrology is associated with a different chakra in the body. And Venus, which is the ruler of this full moon, is associated with our heart chakra, which is our 5th chakra. And so it's the chakra which gives pure love, compassion, the quality of being a good, to be a good person, a good partner, self-confidence, and being able to detach from things that are not, of love. So what I thought we'd do is I'm going to do a guided meditation with everyone. I'm not going to be able to put music on, so if you can just find a place where you can be comfortable, whether it be sitting or laying down. And, this is meant to help us find some sense of inner balance.
So, Andrea, I have a quick question, if it's okay with you.
Yeah.
So we had similar experience with a pandemic like this in 1918. So has anybody looked at that chart at that time and see how it is matching, or so we know how severe it is compared to that?
Yeah, it was the same, Pluto and Saturn together. It was the same type of energy as we are experiencing now. But the reason that, so Pluto in Capricorn, Saturn in Capricorn, they were, all those historical dates like you're talking about right now, they were all, whatever the influences were influences, what was experienced by the world was, a plague. And so Pluto in Capricorn and Saturn in Capricorn, those are two planets that bring great change. They bring death. They bring, a total restructure of.
So you can actually go back to that time period in the charts and see how.
Yeah.
It is. Okay.
Yeah, you can. You can go back to that time in history and see, like, let me show you. Let me just put in, well, it would take me a long time to go way back there because the way this is set up. But yeah, that's and it's a really good question, Raj, that you brought up here, because, that's astrologers all over YouTube are talking about this, and the significance and the importance, and that this is a very serious thing. So the world is taking it very seriously. So anybody that's not, that's not a good thing. So, but yeah, Pluto, like, let me just show you on the chart. You see Pluto here back in January, these two planets plus Jupiter and Mars were all together. And Mars's action, movement, Mars actually was the one that came behind and said, okay, now it's, through our movement is how this is going to spread. And through, so anyway, you can see it right here. But that's what I was talking about earlier, is that we're going to have, all of this year is going to be very focused. There's going to be a lot of energy, but I mean, it's not like we're right now where things are moving ahead, but when these planets go retrograde, it's going to actually help us to look for some answers to these problems so those times are.
If you go to 1918 type time frame, will they all look similar? The Mars and Pluto and the other four, the total 4 planets, will they be together?
Pluto and Saturn were.
Okay.
So that's the major indicator, but like I'm saying is that the reason that this has spread so fast is because of Jupiter, which is a planet of expansion, Mars, a planet of movement, because
Okay.
so that's why this has spread so fast.
Wow.
Yeah, so, I mean, I wish I could give better news, but I am looking for all those indicators in the chart so that I can share that with you, like I did in the course of talking about this.
Yes.
So, yeah, so, I mean, your, your individual charts would show a little bit more about your life. And because you're on here, then, you're looking to find, some type of knowledge about what's happening and why the outside world, what's surrounding us, what the planets are doing, how they're affecting us. But major indicator is the Pluto-Saturn conjunction, meaning that's when they're together. And I mean, it really started in December, and then it gets stronger and stronger. January, we had the eclipse at the end of December, the solar eclipse, and then the lunar eclipse just really, January 10th. January 12th was when these two planets were exact. And that's when we started to really hear a lot more about this, in the world.
So when you say the two planets, you're talking about Jupiter and Pluto.
No, I'm talking about Pluto and Saturn.
Oh, Pluto and Saturn, sorry.
No, that's okay. Pluto and Saturn. Pluto is the way we describe Pluto is it brings major transformations. It brings death. It brings change. It brings, it takes us through a time where we have no choice but to surrender what we can't control. And being in the sign of Capricorn, Capricorn rules business. It rules government. It rules, structures of the world. And so all of those things are changing incredibly. And, Saturn the two of them together intensify this. And so, it has been especially intense, and it's been magnified, like I said, by Jupiter and Mars. So that's the difference from those other dates that I gave of influenza, is that we've got these two planets here. That meaning Mars and Jupiter. So I hope that gives some clarity to that for you.
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
Okay. So
I have a
the
question.
the main
Oh,
reason I was asking was trying to understand when does this end,
yeah, well, there's going to be steps involved in that, like I said in my article, because that's the main question, is when will this crisis be over? And what I put in my article, I spent hours and hours yesterday writing this, just kind of give everybody a, some clue. So let's see here. So April 25th, first relief really is going to be shown around April 22nd with a new moon with Uranus beside it. This indicates a new theme around finances because Taurus is the financial sign. So this indicates a new theme around finances with changes to come on April 25th. The sun will be beside Uranus. So the sun shines light on things. So it's shining its light on Uranus around the 25th, shines its spirit of vital energy so we can see clear, so we can reflect and further open our consciousness to what the earth needs to free herself from. Around the beginning of May, our area of focus will shift as the north node of the moon moves into Gemini. So that's going to be a big shift for all of us. It's going to, give us more mobility. So I think that's going to be the beginning of some, freeing up. The North Node tells of the focus for the future, and Gemini engages our minds to collect information we need to solve problems. So that's the first relief that I'm seeing. And if you are looking on YouTube, there's a lot of astrologers that are saying the same thing. We're all looking for, like, where are we going to see some relief from this? So definitely paying attention to these blocks or these holds or these things that are stopping us is really important. As difficult as it is, I mean, we're not used to being able to not relate to each other. We're physical, we're human beings, and to be able to not be able to, we're not used to this type of limitation. So, so some of the things that yeah, this full moon really, is Libra is typically a pretty peaceful energy, but because of the stress of that moon, like you can see here, all the red lines to it, there's a lot of pressure, just a lot of pressure. So I hope that answers your question. Lauren, you said you had a question?
Yeah, I do. Did you bring up the year 1350 before, when the Black Death hit in Europe?
Yes, I did. Hang on. And Pluto and Saturn were next to each other at that time also.
Really?
Do you have anything you want to share? Yeah, that was in 1350.
Do you have the chart for it on Intrepid, or you just found that in your research?
No, I found it in my research because for me to go back in Intrepid all the way to that time, right now would take a lot of time.
I imagine.
Yeah, Intrepid doesn't have that capability. Just go put the number, put the year in there.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I could create that chart. Hang on a second. Let me do this. I know what I can do. Let's see here. So I'll just call it the Black Death.
Yeah.
I just thought of a way I can do that. Wait a minute. Let's put it Black Death. And probably put it for the UK, right?
Yeah.
And just put London. Yep. And I'll just put April 7th, 1350. 12. Okay, let's see. Same. Just you see, they just moved away from each other. Do you see it? Actually, those two planets were involved at that time, Mars and Jupiter.
Wait, but is it the inner chart that was 1350? Yeah.
Oh wait. Hang on, sorry. Oops. Good point, Lauren. Good point. But
wow.
here it is.
So it was, oh wow, so Pluto was conjunct Saturn then too. Oh
yeah,
wow.
all those dates that that I gave, I did research into these, but I'm glad you brought that up. Raj, I didn't think of that when you asked, but these planets were together.
So every time they've been together is when there's been an outbreak.
Yeah, there's been an influenza, there's been a plague, Spanish flu, polio epidemic, AIDS. I could put in the years of, let's see, 1918 was the Spanish flu, 1947, 1982, they were all together.
They were together.
I know.
And that was in a cardinal sign too, an Aries. Wow. Like how it's in Capricorn now, a cardinal sign. Oh wow.
Yeah, and cardinal is affects our our activity. It's things that we Aries is, the cardinal signs are like signs that want to fix things or control things, but Pluto rules over pandemics, death, change, transformation. So yeah, they're together here. It's 1350.
Wow, that's wild. I had no idea.
Yeah, that's, I mean, I looked it up, in research to do this tonight. I spend time on gathering this information because, I'm really glad that everybody's coming on here, everybody that's here. I wish more people would come on because I think it would be a lot, great support for everybody, for people to join up like this. And we have this capability.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway,
that's
Hey,
really
this is Greg.
cool. Thank
hi,
you.
Greg.
Hi, I have a comment and a question.
Yeah.
So my comment first is that one of the things that's really helped me with the last several weeks that you've been doing this is to understand that, we need to stay grounded.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to realize that some things are out of our control. So we just have to accept it and still stay grounded and not fight it so much.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, that's been really helpful. And also I've upped my meditation quite a bit, just trying sometimes, because I have this weird feeling all the time of the energy that's going on with everybody. So it's really helped me to do some meditation more, even if it's only for 3 or 5 minutes, just to sit and be present and kind of know that I can't change this except by how I react to it or don't react to it. So.
Yeah, that's really good advice. I'm glad you.
Well, it's not. It's just it's a product of what you've kind of been, sharing with us and everything. So I really appreciate that. And then I know Raj, because what I'm hearing about all this is that these indicators, whatever they are, have shown many times this has happened. And I know one of his questions was, well, when is it over? And you gave us a good idea of, like, I think April 22nd, we're going to get our first relief.
Mm-hmm.
But can you see how far? I mean, are we looking at 6 months of this? Are we looking at how much? I mean, can you see that in the chart?
Yeah, it's going to be because of retrogrades. So let me go back to get right now, and let me just do a new chart here. So this is where we're at right now, but I got to change the location. Let's see here.
I mean, Raj, is that what you were asking, kind of ultimately?
Yes, Greg, absolutely. Because we are trying to, we are in the middle of it. We have no control. But then it gives us some strength to know, hey, this storm is going to be there for 3 months or whatever the length. Then we can at least begin to adjust to that.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah, yeah. So I had mentioned earlier that this is going to be with us in different ways throughout this year, because what happens is all these outer planets, like we have Jupiter, we have Uranus, we have Saturn, we have Neptune and Pluto. They all go retrograde every year for about 5.5 months, and it's typically spring till fall where we experience that. And so because of that, Pluto and Saturn are going to come back together, and so is Jupiter. And that's going to be, let's see, I made some notes on that. Now they're together, so they're connecting in June. During the retrograde, they're going to come back together again. So again, like I stated about retrogrades give us a time of relief from outward movement. So what could happen is, from like as spring comes in until fall, while they're retrograde, we get some relief, but then when they start to move forward in the fall, we might have a resurgence. So, and by November, they're going to come back together again by moving together. So it's going to be most of this year in different ways that we're going to have effects from this. So,
So Andrea, like you said before, when they come back together, there was one planet that Mars, I guess, it does a lot of movement. Would that also be the same again to the intensity of the way it's spreading right now?
Well, when they're retrograde, when we have retrogrades, which happens in the spring, a lot of planets go retrograde, spring until June. That's the time when there's this inner energy. It's not outer. Like all the things we talk about that have to do with retrogrades, they take us inward to fix things, to find answers to outward problems. So actually the retrogrades are going to give us some sense of relief. But when they start to go direct, which is, in the fall toward November, that there's actually a lot of astrologers are talking about that there could be a resurgence of it then. So
Hi, this is Greg. You know what? I just realized that the question of when is this over is really inappropriate, because this is changing, as you said, the dynamics of our money, our political environment. This is an unprecedented shift in the structures that have been there for so many years, some good, some bad, and a lot ugly. And so there's not going to really be an end like 9/11. I mean, who doesn't still feel the effects of that? So it's really,
right.
I think I want to re-ask the question, because I think what you said was appropriate, is there's going to be levels. We're going to go through a process. We're going to get a relief. We might get another relief, and we might get another relief. But there's no way to map or state a time on something that's so changing to all of the structures that are currently in place. And I think many of us would agree need change no matter what.
Yeah, well, definitely when these two planets separate and no longer come back and connect, which is next year, that's going to be a relief. It's going to be a different type of, but all of this year they're going to come back together. Right now they're together. They're going to come back together by retrograde in June and then November. These are far out planets, so their transits are long. They're slow coming in, and then they stay with us a long time, and they're slow going out. So, Pluto is the farthest planet away from us. Jupiter, certainly when Jupiter around the end of the year is going to move into Aquarius, that's going to help us, but it will also square Uranus. So, we've got levels of influences here that are challenging, and what it's doing is it's changing the very structure of the world, the financial systems, as you can see. Uranus in Taurus, that is going to change the way we produce our food. It's going to change the land. It's going to change the earth. So, a lot of astrologers are talking about a huge, spiritual awakening also, because people are having to concentrate on, connecting with their inner spirit at this time, like Greg was talking about. So that's definitely.
It kind of reminds me of The Cheese Has Moved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
I don't know if everybody knows that book, but interesting.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are feeling it, Andrea. I feel like karma seems to be coming very quick. I feel like a lot of people, even like in my life, or I know about in the area, greed is being exposed.
Mm-hmm.
I have one girl that I know that is home. She has no income, and she's making masks and donating them to Mass General Hospital and all the big hospitals around here in Boston. She's actually donating, making hundreds of them, staying up all night. She's got 2 babies. And then I have another woman that I know that has money, and she wants $5 a mask.
Yeah.
It's exposing a lot, I think.
Yeah, it is. It's whether people are coming from their heart or, they're wanting to give back. you know, or to help or donate what they can,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Yeah, I just find it funny that, you know, it just seems like karma seems to be happening much quicker. And you're seeing like different companies, how they're reacting and treating their employees. I think it's just showing us a lot.
Yeah, yeah, it is. Whereas I did put on news for a little while this evening before. Well, I actually did a long meditation first, just to kind of balance myself, so that I, you know, could come in here and talk about what's happening with this map, outside influences, and it talked about a lot of little businesses. The news was talking about a lot of little businesses, and you know that what the government's doing is, you know, you got to apply for a loans in order to pay yourself and pay your employees.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of, you know, business all over, from big to small, is being affected. So, you know, if you're able to continue working, you're really lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah, and meaning, you know, Capricorn is, if you want to look, you can think about it this way. Pluto moving through Capricorn, which it began in 2008. When it first moved into Capricorn, what happened in 2008, 2009? You know, we had that great recession, right? The financial collapse,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Everybody was affected by that. That was the very beginning, and it's, you know, it's been this slow, you know, but Capricorn is business, and I mean, it changes us, right? Capricorn is also, because it's ruled by Saturn, it can be a sign of, okay, it's time to change the greed in the world. It's time to change the way we do our work. It's time to do, you know, it's time to change those underlying structures. And when you get all those planets coming together, it's like massive influence to us here on Earth. So
I think over the years we've been having little whispers of that, and nobody takes it seriously, or, you know, it might change people for 2 weeks and then they go back to how they were before.
mm-hmm.
But I think this has stopped people in their tracks and really is going to be changing things.
Right, right.
I do feel for the better.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it will, but right now
I agree.
yeah, it's going to change things for the better. It's just getting from here to there. So, you know, what are the things that we can do that get us from here to there? That's what we need to be talking about. You know, Capricorn, like I talked earlier, is about tools. What are those tools? What does that look like? And we're definitely going to learn, because we don't really have much choice. So yeah, I think it's going to change things for the better also. It's going to change the way that we do things. And, you know, one of the things I thought about in the course of this is that Venus in Gemini. Venus is our money, our financial systems, relationships, and with it, and let me, you know, I got to change this chart somehow to, I got to do a new chart. So, oops, cancel. I got it into the United Kingdom, so I'm going to have to delete this one and get a new chart up on the screen here. Let me just do a birth.
Andrea, you keep talking about tools. This is actually one that helps. That's very helpful.
Oh,
What you're doing, I think this is really great. I think the kids, you know, Keegan's here doing school online during the day. I'm allowing him to go at night on the computer with his friends. You know, we have to choose your battles with the kids.
yeah, choose what, yeah. It's taking a lot of discipline. You know, Capricorn's about discipline.
I heard an
too.
interesting story today. There's a fire department here in Massachusetts. One of the firemen, his son has it. So doesn't he go to work? And he's sick now. They had to shut down the fire department, put 13 firemen on a 2-week leave. And the firemen are really upset at this guy, mainly because his son's a teenager. And he says to them, what am I supposed to do? Not let him go out? It's like, really? These kids nowadays, they don't know the word no. Yes, he caused the whole fire department to shut down now.
Wow, wow. And that's what I was talking about earlier, people that are in denial that this is real. This is real, and then that's affecting everybody around them. And it's definitely a lot of restriction is important. I mean, like I said earlier about these squares are there for a reason. They tell us to slow down, take a look at this, and just kind of pause. We're in a big pause right now.
Right.
So, does anybody else want to add anything? No, okay. All right, so.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry that I made you change your location.
Well,
Okay.
that's okay. No, don't be sorry. I'm glad that we saw it, because then you realize that what we're talking about historically is true.
Right.
No, and guys, this has been incredibly helpful for me to be interactive and to talk about it, and kind of, we're all shut in and we're expressing, how we feel and what it looks like. Andrea, thank you so much for, giving us some kind of way to calibrate the future.
Yes, thank you. This is really helpful.
Well, you're welcome. I feel like this is the least I can do. I wish I could provide, but I think that,
Masks?
it helps. Yeah.
Could you get me a mask?
Well, my sister told me today, who's up in New Hampshire, she said that masks, you have to actually, I don't think I agree with her, but she says that
No,
masks.
Don't say it then.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So, okay, I won't say it.
No, masks are good no matter
Yes.
what, even just a covering, even just something. I'm in California, and 3 days ago, when I went out, I've been wearing a mask for about 3 weeks, and I made my own. But I went out, and 10% of the people were wearing masks. 3 days ago, it changed to 80%.
Yeah.
So we're all going through this. We're all trying to figure it out. We're all trying to be safe. And, again, I think it's really good to know this actually could have the most amazing consequences, if you will, of changing things that aren't working.
Mm-hmm.
I'm all for that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Great.
That's what it's going to do. It's going to bring up where the problems are. That's a lot of, like I mentioned about the retrograde. That's from a really divine sense. That's what that's about. Is retrogrades are about fixing things that are wrong outwardly, and we get that time to do that. So, I'm really glad, as much as this is helping you, it's helping me too, to be here with you. So I want to say thank you to everybody who's on here, because as much as it's helping you, it's helping me too.
Yeah, I've been really enjoying it.
Yeah, I enjoy all of you.
So Andrea, would you share this video link when you are done? I know you send the emails. If it's that way, also it's fine. And also, you said you did a newsletter. I will check my emails, but if I don't find it, I will send you, because I want to share this with. So what's happening right now is people are all isolated. They're all using technology to talk to each other in forms of groups. And they're all, many of them, like Greg said, they have no answers for the length of time or the historical perspective, especially like Lauren said, 1350, and we went there, and voila, that's something that a lot of people are, we are going through this, but a lot of them are ignorant. So I can say that, that's very, and, they may appreciate and get help. Right now, there's a lot of anxiety, right?
Right. Well, Raz, if you want to email me with your email address, I thought you were in my constant contact, which is my, my mass.
I think so, but I'll send you my email again just to make sure I get it. And I will put it on the group, WhatsApp group, the recordings, especially the portion that, discusses, how it repeats.
Yeah, I put last week's out on my website, Turn to the Stars, with the article that I wrote last night. And so the link is on there for last week's. And tomorrow I'll put together an email to send out. And I put it also out on Facebook. I don't know if you're on Facebook, but I put it out on Facebook. I put it on my website, and I send it out by constant contact. I was pretty busy last week, so I didn't get it out till yesterday. But I will get it out there, so that if you want to share it, I think that's a really awesome thing to do.
Yes, I'll search for it, and if I don't find, I'll send you a direct email.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm happy to go check and make sure that you're receiving it, Raj.
Yeah, no problem. And I really appreciate this time, because we don't have the knowledge of, perspective. And right now, everyone realizing that they have limits to their control or their abilities. This is beyond our abilities. And if you ask the doctors, the scientists and the doctors, the main answer they say is, I don't know. It's the first time I'm hearing. They have no clue. Absolutely no clue. And that is not a good answer for people. But we are in that mindset, in that mindset right now.
You know what? Maybe this will raise awareness of the world of how helpful astrology is.
Yeah, it's to me, astrology is real. It's real. It's not a crystal ball that somebody just looks into. It's real.
Yeah.
I think Andrea, this is, I agree with some of us, we are here because of that. Like Lisa, staunch believer, and I, after I had sessions with you, direct one-on-one, and it's just amazing. But what happens is they have to get exposed to this, as well as they get validation. When they validate, then they agree. Then they pay more attention to astrology.
Right.
I mean, you'll be surprised how many people are ignorant.
Yeah. Do you know something I want to share on that? There are some cultures still on Earth that you have to, before you become a doctor, you have to learn astrology. You have to learn, the language of astrology. You have to learn how to read a chart. And I do this because I found 22 years ago, I started studying it, and I just never stopped, because it answered so many questions that I had about my own life. And so, it's the most exact. We're on Earth, and we're affected by those planets that surround us in our solar system. Earth is alive. It's a live being. It grows. Things grow on Earth, so it's alive. It produces food for us, So why wouldn't the moon, the full moons, we know the full moons affect us. You know, we know that eclipses affect us. We know that these outer planets, you know, we look historically. I think it was a huge eye opener for all of us tonight seeing that.
Yeah, it definitely was.
Yeah, that was a great question, Lauren. And so to put that up to demonstrate it, very helpful. So I think that, you know, what we can do in conclusion is, if you want, we can do the meditation, or I can recommend where you can find it on the web. If you go on YouTube, let me show you, because you're seeing my screen right now. Let me go into YouTube here, and there's, let me see, guided meditation that helps bring balance. Here's one I did earlier. It really helped me. This one right here, wait a minute, like 30 minutes long. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes, that's a good tip, Andrea. And for me, I would rather this conversation.
Okay, all right, well.
I get much more out of this, and then I can do the meditation on my own, but it's totally up to you. That's just from my perspective. I'm getting more out of the conversation.
Okay, so then we'll just, you know, keep it at that, but here's where you know, can go on your own. There's so many meditations, I mean, out on YouTube, and like journeys, shamanic journey. I mean, that's a little bit more, it's a different, you know, that's something that you really got to practice. But meditation, just if you know, if you have trouble focusing, just, you know, don't give up, keep trying, because this one I did earlier and I felt a lot better than I was feeling before. It helped me get back into balance, because your energy centers, this one actually, you know, starts out with your feet, and relaxing your legs, your knees, you know, and then going right through each chakra. And I saw it like, you know, with this Libra full moon, it's about finding our excuse me, my throat's getting dry, about finding our inner balance, our inner peace. That's what Libra is all about, because we're certainly not, like we talked about, we're not finding it in the outside world. So we got to find, okay, what tool is going to help us get there?
You know, and I'm actually a Libra. But one thing I want to add to that is connecting to Mother Earth all the way down to the core, and staying connected to that grounding. So important, so important.
Yeah, it is true. I have a little granddaughter. She just turned 3. And when she was born, she had a big toe, right? So I call her Big Toe. But now as she gets older, I tell her that her name is Big Toe because she's so grounded, and her big toe is going to keep her grounded her whole life.
That's
yes, being grounded is big, Greg. People have to stay grounded. Which brings me to one subject that is upsetting me is I read an article about the healthcare workers, and they're in such despair. And we're losing a lot of people to the virus, but we're also losing a lot of people other ways with, that's not really being talked about much, with suicide and drugs and alcohol, with even the nurses. And I'm really bothered by that, because I feel like they're in such despair of what's happening. And I just wanted to mention that it makes me feel really sad.
Yeah, that's, you know, I'll tell you something, that I don't get out of bed in the morning before I pray or I meditate, and I think that would help all of us if we, you know, I understand, Lisa, what you're saying. It is, I'm sure they're seeing so much that they don't know what to do with it, and they're not taught. I have a client who is a nurse, and she's no longer a nurse because she can't handle it. She can't she can't do that anymore. It wore her out so much. I mean, she's battling her own health right now with cancer.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it was, and you know what? It's interesting that, it's not interesting. It's just, I heard that on the news too, Lisa. I'm kind of all over the place here, but I heard what you said, and they also talked about that there's a lot of doctors and nurses that are in retirement that they're calling and saying,
Yes.
help. Can you help? You know,
Yeah.
and help. Because I don't think they're trained in this level of trauma.
No, my daughter-in-law is a labor and delivery nurse, and she said that their team has become very close. They're very, very in tune to each other. They're, you know, backing each other up. My daughter-in-law didn't get one mask. She got one for everybody. She made sure. Like they're just really taking care of each other. But she did tell me that what's happening, they're finding that when women are delivering babies, they're coming in and they don't have the virus. And when they deliver the baby, they're getting it like it's coming on really fast and strong to the mothers. So I'm wondering if the hormones, being
Wow.
hormonal, is preventing it or keeping it at bay. And once they have the baby, they're getting it full blown.
Wow.
I found that very interesting too.
Yeah, that is interesting. So it must have something to do with hormones.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, I'll tell you, I think the hospital is probably, I mean, I don't know. I'm not going to say anything about that. I'm just, you know, I think for us to all support each other and staying focused, but that's good information, Lisa, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So, you know, you can go on YouTube, and there's meditations for anxiety. There's meditations for, you know, actually, gratitude meditations helps a lot with fear, because if you're in a place of saying, oh my God, you know, I've got a home to live in, I've got all these things, I'm so lucky. That helps a lot.
mm-hmm.
So that's just recommendations. And if anybody has any other recommendations other than what we've talked about, I know one thing for me that helps a lot is just walking out the door with Bunny, my dog, and walking down the street, going for a walk. It helps to change things, getting out in the light.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's for a while I was watching videos on a Dr. Andrew Saul, S-A-U-L.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if anybody's ever heard of him before, but he was on Netflix, but they took him off. But you can find him on the YouTube videos, Dr. Andrew Saul,
Mm-hmm.
and he talks about vitamins, the vitamin C. He's excellent. I learned a lot from him, and I do a lot of what he promotes, which is just really just vitamins.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Greg's actually taught me a lot about, you know, like vitamin C, and colloidal silver is actually a really great, you know, Greg makes it. So that's something that helps get rid of, you know, keeps it strengthens your immune system.
Yeah, I do 5,000 milligrams a day.
Yeah, that's what Greg does too.
5,000 milligrams a day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've been doing that.
Lisa, you're talking about colloidal silver?
Or
No.
vitamin C.
Vitamin C.
Oh, vitamin
yeah.
C.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But
vitamin
I
C.
do the
No,
powder.
colloidal silver. You only need like a sip. It's just it's a antifungal, antibacterial, antiviral, all of it, and you just have to have it in your system.
Yeah. So what I found was I had no idea. I'm a software engineer. No idea. I had no interest, or I had no idea the difference between bacteria and virus. like at the beginning of this year. And now I can talk about everything in the cell. It's crazy. You're learning out of fear. It's like a
That's
crash
good.
course.
That's so in a great way, this is a learning experience for all of us.
Oh, it's a learning experience under duress, you know. So,
You know, think about it. You know, when I've done, you know, trying to think about where I'm at in my life, you look at and you put all the things that you know how to do on a paper, like just put little dots. Then you draw a circle around that, and these are all the things you know how to do. And what's happening right now, that circle's getting expanded because we're having to do things that we're not used to doing. This
Right,
is
yeah.
I mean, the most amazing thing to me is everybody is out of their comfort zone.
yes.
Mhm.
And that is bringing up, you know, creativity. And I'm an entrepreneur. So for me, that's like, wow, what do you do with this? Not how has it hurt us? How is it going to make us better? And I think everybody's kind of like having struggle with getting there because we're breaking down the structure.
Yeah.
And it's a good thing.
Yeah. It's just, yeah, we're taking, it's going step by step by step. And it is true. We're having to figure out how we can be more creative and maybe even inventive, you know?
Yeah.
That was one of the reasons why I talked about where the moon is every day, because the moon is the closest body to the earth. So the sign it's in really influences that energy. So if you're aware of it, okay, so what are the influences of that energy, and how does that affect it? It helps a lot to understand that. And so that's one of the reasons that when I do consultations, that I'm talking about the moon and the new moons, and it's nice to be able to check in on that every month and to understand that. It makes a big help, because then even though naturally those themes are there, but when you're in awareness of it, it really helps a lot. So like right now we're in the new moon that we had back in the end of March in Aries with Chiron. It really brought up a theme of, typically Aries is forward movement and a lot of activity, a lot of going in places we've never been before. Well, we definitely are doing that, but with Chiron it's like looking out how we can find self-healing, it's all about the self. So that's been the tone, and right now it's peaking. We're learning, and I think it's really great what's happening here, because this interaction, bringing people together, that's what full moons are meant to do. Oppositions are meant to bring people together, but it's a choice. So just if we're all feeling like we are complete for the night, then I'll want to say,
Yeah, Andrea, that was wonderful. Thank you very much.
well, you're welcome, and thanks for coming on, Lisa, and for sharing and for speaking up, and Raj the same, and Lauren and Greg. I don't think there's anybody else on here.
I just got a text message from Sandy. She had to work, but she'll be on next week. She's disappointed she missed it.
Oh, Sandy Taylor, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I talked to her the other day, and yeah.
You doing this next Tuesday as well?
Yeah, I'm going to continue to every Tuesday.
Awesome.
So if there's anybody you want to share it with, and tell them about it and give them the link so that they can come on. There can be up to 100 people on here. So, that's why I said I'm really...
So Andrea, the Zoom meeting ID will remain the same, or will it change every time?
I actually create a new one every week. So that's why, check your email.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Andy, I'm sorry, there's background noise here. What might be good is if you create a link just for this workshop. You could use your private room.
Oh, okay. I didn't know. I didn't think about that. Yeah. So.
Yeah, if you do
So
that,
we
it always
can talk
remains
about
the
that
same.
later.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Maybe Greg can help. So basically, the link remains constant. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm going to have to look into that. How I guess I'm not sure about that. So yeah, this was I created this meeting just for tonight, and I did that for last week. But so that's something I have to understand, I guess. I'm fairly new, a couple months into using Zoom.
You probably need a tech guy.
Yeah. Do you know one, Greg? Yeah.
What?
I said, do you know one?
Personally.
Yeah, you. Yeah. Yeah, Greg's really good with this stuff. He's helped me with a lot with my with all kinds of different technical stuff, which I would have never had the opportunity to do. So yeah, thanks, Greg. Really. And everyone, thanks for coming on tonight, and let's stay in touch, okay?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you so much.
Yeah, have a
Share
great
with
night.
everybody.
Have a
Thank
happy
you, Greg.
night.
You too,
Yeah.
all of
You guys too.
All right, we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Sounds good. Oh, let me close this.
Oh, let me figure out how to, let me end this, yeah. Wait a minute. Okay, there we go.
All right.